Alright, hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Saga here, and here we today have a special video where I will just be releasing straight up the Phase 3 Part 1 and Part 2 just combined of the MCU Infinity Saga. Then next week will be the beginning of the Multiverse Saga, and a week from today, which this will be released later on in the evening on Tuesday, March 10th, on a week from today on St. Patrick's Day, in fact. Weird timing. I will release all three phases of the MCU combined together for those of you who want to watch it. Whenever y'all feel like it. Yeah. So this will be like an hour or close to an hour long. I'm going to be removing the intros and outros of the respective videos as they don't have sense here. And this intro will be here. I'll include a small little outro. Thank you for watching and stuff, and that'll be it. So, have a good day. Enjoy the rewatching. Alrighty then, and so the first film of the six that we're going to be talking about today is the third film in the Captain America first trilogy. I would hope first trilogy, or the just third part of the Steve Rogers Captain America franchise. I differentiate Steve and Sam Wilson because it's two different Captain Americas and two different types of stories. So this is the third one in Captain America franchise of the MCU, the last installment of a Captain America film that will see Steve Rogers as Captain America, the 13th film in MCU in release order. This is number 12 of my overall MCU films rankings. I'll do a video about that in some time after I'm done doing all these phases videos. So, Captain America Civil War, what is it? How is it in the continuity? Well, it's taking place on the heels of the events in Sokovia with Age of Ultron. Um, Superheroes are now getting to be regulated in some degree. Thunderbolt Ross and Baron Zemo are kind of like villains. Thunderbolt Ross is just trying to regulate and take control and kind of like puppeteer sort of the heroes, and Baron Zemo wants justice for his family and stuff like that. And Baron Zemo happens to know the same stuff that Cap knows about Bucky, about what Bucky did as the Winter Soldier, and Steve willingly and chooses to keep that secret from Tony. And so we have Team Cap versus Team Tony, fighting not only for supremacy over who is right in the Sokovia Accords issue of whether or not superheroes should be regulated, but also the murdering of Tony Stark's parents and a few other encapsulating stories that we're seeing in most of the Avengers team up to this point. We also have War Machine or Iron Patriot. He gets paralyzed, I believe, in this film. Steve Rogers, Sam Wilson, Natasha Romanoff, um, what's his name? Ant-Man, Scott Lang, Ant-Man, all get arrested and later would escape. This ultimately sets up how all the Avengers view themselves and are fractured, and sets up the perfect stage for Thanos to take over and to pluck in right at the perfect time to take over the universe. And so this is one of the well thought out and well crafted MCU films because it pretty much set the tone for the MCU of Phase 3, that every single movie or most of these movies are going to be hard hitting and very emotional, and they're going to piggyback off of the first two phases with a lot of these characters, especially being that a lot of these characters by the end of Phase 3, that we're going to have some deaths, or we're not going to see them as much because they're older and pretty much retired heroes. And so we better get the most out of them, and this is going to be the most emotional roller coaster yet. Okay, so now we have the second film of Phase 3. and that would be the first ever Doctor Strange movie, which is the intro to magic and the supernatural esque side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And we haven't seen all too much of it even to this point, even eight, even basically a decade later at this point nearly. It's been 9 years since this film released, and this is the first introduction to magic and supernatural. This was also the 14th film in the MCU to be released. The second film released in 2016, so it's been a decade almost. It was released in early November. And so this, we follow Dr. Stephen Strange, who is a well-renowned and also very much an arrogant, because that's part of his nature, neurosurgeon, because neurosurgeons tend to also be slightly arrogant because they're so smart and so good at what they do. That's just a thing about neurosurgeons and most surgeons in general. And so he's a well renowned neurosurgeon, but gets into a car accident that cripples his hands to where he can't be a neurosurgeon. It ruins his entire purpose, his entire way of being. So he seeks and seeks and seeks and goes throughout this whole journey of trying to rebuild his hands and eventually winds up in like the Sorcerer's Academy and delves with the Ancient One and pretty much becomes like the Ancient One's successor to in whatever it's called, in the Sorcerer's Supreme type of thing. And so this is a journey of refining yourself after you've lost what's most important to you, after you've lost your purpose in life, and trying to find a new purpose, or refining that purpose and refining that purpose and reigniting that fire. And so we see Dormammu and I'm probably not going to pronounce it right, Kael'Silas, who is a former sorcerer and knows of the Ancient One's ways and habits and how those contradict what she preaches. And so those are the through two big threats, and Kael'Silas is aiming to use Dormammu as a big weapon to ignite and start a fight against the sorcerers. And so, but Doctor Strange uses the Time Stone to stop Dormammu and create an infinite time loop. And so Dormammu ends up yielding to him as long as Stephen Strange has that stone. And this is all about just Stephen Strange refining himself and becoming a powerful sorcerer, but also Kael'Silas exposing the truth about the Ancient One. And so this is also the second film in a row where we're exposing truths that are hidden beneath, because Civil War, Baron Zemo exposed the truth behind Bucky and the Winter Soldier program, and now Kael'Silas is exposing the truth behind the Ancient One. So two films in a row, we're exposing truths that are hidden beneath the surface that we don't really know about to begin with. All right, so now after Doctor Strange, we have the first film of 2017, the second film in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is the 15th film released in the MCU in the overall universe in release order. This is the first of three films released in 2017, the first time the MCU delves into doing three films in a single year as they expand to see what's the perfect window of how many movies or films or whatever you want to call them or projects to release in a single year. And they continue to go about this even further into phase 4 and phase 5, and more leaning towards finding that 3 is more so among the perfect number. And so this is also the first of two films released in a like 3-month period in 2017. The second of which is Spider-Man in the July slot. So this comes out in May, Spider-Man in July, and Thor comes out in November of 2017. And so this causes a huge production shift as they fight and vie to see if they can keep up with themselves and properly do the properly keep up with quality while increasing quantity of what they're constantly producing and with overall storytelling purposes as well. And so, with that being said, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And so, in Volume 1, we dealt with the Power Stone, we dealt with Ronan the Enforcer, and we also dealt with Groot sacrificing himself to save the Guardian ship and the whole team. And so Rocket Raccoon at the end of that breaks a twig off and places it into a like plant pot, and that forms baby Groot, who grows from baby to toddler stage Groot in this film. We also have Gamora and Star Lord etching closer and closer all throughout this film to officially falling in love with each other, as Star Lord was head over heels for her pretty much from the moment he saw him, but she slowly ends up falling in love. Star Lord meets his father, who's an absolute monster, and the reason that Star Lord's mother fell sick and died the way that she did. We get the tease of Adam Warlock towards the end of this, and Yondu, who is Peter Quill's, aka Star Lord's actual like father figure that he grew up on, sacrifices himself to save Peter. As Peter gets stuck in space, and Yondu sacrifices himself in that span, and it rebuilds and guides all the Ravagers together to unite to celebrate Yondu's passing. And Star Lord's father ends up becoming a planet, and this isn't the best Guardians movie, but it is still a half decent movie overall, and it's not the worst movie of Phase 3. It is probably the worst movie of the first half of Phase 3 that we're going to be covering today. And so that is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, briefly. So now we reach into the fourth film of this third phase, and we're now at the halfway point of the first half of Phase 3. And so this is the first Spider-Man movie of a trilogy, pretty much known as the Home Trilogy, as the word home is used in every part of the title, so it's recognized as the Home Trilogy. And so this is called Spider-Man Homecoming. And yes, there's also the Homecoming High School dance in this, albeit briefly, but it is in here, and it is a central focal point of the plot, really. This is the first movie of the Spider-Man franchise within the MCU. It is produced with Marvel and Sony together, as Sony currently has the rights to Marvel and they worked out a deal. This is also the third iteration of a Spider-Man since 2000, with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield having run their courses in their own Spider-Man franchises. This is the 16th film in the MCU in release order, and the second film of 2017. It is released in July, and this is kind of the month where if a Spider-Man film releases, it kind of thrives. July is just like that month for Spider-Man. Vulture is the villain with a very, very original origin story, I would say, because a lot of Vulture origin stories involve him being like a high school kid and like a troubled high school kid that grows up with Peter and stuff happens to him. But this is a grown adult who struggles with issues after stuff that happened after the Battle of New York. And so it delves into stuff with how families have to go into doing some bad things sometimes because they view it as no other options in a terrible world. And that's basically what Vulture ends up doing. And he becomes Vulture to support and get his family to thrive after the events of the Battle of New York. And so this film really encapsulates how, after the Battle of New York, how it affected people in New York so prevalently and so heavily. Also, Uncle Ben here is long dead. Everyone's past it, and it's been a decent time since his death has been around. He is confirmed to be in it. Tony Stark here kind of like has a flirtatious relationship with Aunt May. However, he is with Pepper still. It's just kind of like a flirtatious relationship, but it's not really anything. It's just Tony being Tony, and the audience kind of views it as a possible relationship, which kind of freaks some people out. Tony Stark is also a mentor to Peter and provides a lot of technology stuff to him in suits and AI and interface like he has with Jarvis and Friday. And so now, but also he constantly is trying to mentor Peter and subtly trying to recruit him a little bit as he wants Peter to grow up a little bit to become an Avenger. But then Spider Man, or well, Peter Parker, ends up denying it as he wants to get through high school and he wants to be the friendly neighborhood Spider Man. And so this is the very beginning of Spider Man in the MCU as he but it's not his first appearance. He first appeared in Civil War and fought on Team Tony and showed off his feats of strength in that battle as a like 15-year-old in that film. And so that is the fourth film of Phase 3, Part 1, Spider-Man Homecoming. All right, so now we're into the penultimate slot or the fifth slot of 6 films. And so this is the third film in the Thor franchise, Thor Ragnarok. Ragnarok in Norse mythology is like a big cataclysmic or apocalyptic event involving deaths of many Norse gods or goddesses, and oftentimes has at least Odin's death and possibly even Thor's death in it. And so this thing that's a big event in both the comics of Marvel and also Norse mythology. And so it's called kind of like the fate or twilight of the gods, really. And so this is the third film in the Thor franchise, and I don't say trilogy. It's kind of like a trilogy, but there is a fourth film and a confirmed fifth film to be coming. So I don't know what you would actually call it. Would you call it a trilogy, then a duology, or something like that? I'm not quite sure. But overall, we have Thor in another space and intergalactic adventure with traveling and finding himself after the events of Age of Ultron, and he stayed home. He stayed on Earth and stayed with Jane for a little while, but now Jane isn't here at all and is kind of like dealing with a breakup with her. And so he kind of like goes back to Asgard, but Odin's not there, and Loki's kind of like portraying himself as to be someone else, and there's a play and stuff, which is kind of funny too. Um, and so we also meet Doctor Strange in this film. He has a quick little cameo, his first cameo appearance outside of his own franchise that we've seen forever. And it's also only been about a year since Doctor Strange fully debuted because this is the third film in the MCU in 2017 in November and the 17th in MCU release order. And so Doctor Strange cameos, has Loki going through portals on a time loop for a little while, kind of like that's fun. Transports or changes or manipulates into like an illusion, Thor's hammer into like an umbrella. Real quick, Valkyrie is introduced in this film. We have Gladiator Hulk, which is based off of Planet Hulk in the comics, as Thor is forced into becoming a gladiator on Sakaar after being like captured in a way by the Grand Master on Sakaar. Well, the Grand Master is the one that orders the capture. Valkyrie is the one that does the capturing. Hela is the main villain of this film. You also have Grandmaster and the Fenris Wolf as villains, but they're more minor villains. Hela is the true main villain. You also have Surtur, who sought to fulfill the prophecy of destroying Asgard. Hela is the main villain and is the first heir and true heir to Asgard as being Odin's firstborn, his daughter, the goddess of death, and secretly Thor's sister. She seeks to conquer Asgard and make it her own and ruin Odin's legacy. So yeah, Thor participates in gladiator combat on Sakaar, fighting Hulk, meeting Valkyrie. Loki gets redeemed. We have the Planet Hulk storyline. Asgard gets destroyed through Surtur. Hela goes down as well. And they all are in a spaceship towards the end. Loki's redeemed. We have Valkyrie wanting to get back into the fight of actually being a Valkyrie again, and they are and Asgard is just a people and not a place, and so they look to find a new place to call home as a people after the destruction of their own city. And also, one last thing about Thor Ragnarok is I consider it to be, and most people consider it to be, the best Thor film of all four Thor movies released as of right now in 2026. So, as you're enjoying and watching this wonderful MCU Infinity Saga Phase 3, Parts 1 and 2 video that I've made, please think about liking the video if you liked it, subscribe, and comment something below you liked about the Infinity Saga. Right, so now after 5 films, we now have the final and ultimate, kind of like the halfway point of the MCU Infinity Saga Phase 3. We have Black Panther, the first film of the franchise, the only film to have Chadwick Boseman, aka T'Challa, as Black Panther, unfortunately, untimely passing, as it was with his death. This is the third and final. This is the first of 3 films released in 2018. And it's also all 3 films were released between February and July. Which this one being February. This is also another film where this is an origin story, but this is the second origin debut type of thing that was introduced through Captain America Civil War, where Spider-Man kind of cameoed and had a huge role. Black Panther also did the same, as his father T'Chaka was murdered. Now, and so this is Black Panther's true origin or debut kind of way. As the first film, as Captain America Civil War wasn't really about him, it was about his father and vengeance, really. This is where we see the true character and the true traits of T'Challa. Now, important distinction to make about Black Panther that some people may not know. T'Challa was already the acting Black Panther and had been the acting Black Panther, as his father was quoted of being not well fit enough to wear the suit, and he had been the acting Black Panther since 2009. And so up to this film, that would be roughly closing in on a decade. And by the time Chadwick's untimely passing, he is as Black Panther for roughly 10 years, and then the 5-year jump, and then dies shortly after coming back in Endgame. Spoiler alert, but the movie's been out for 7 years, nearly. So T'Challa becoming Black Panther pretty much aligns right around the time of Iron Man 1, and that's an important distinction because Black Panther, the movie about Black Panther in this movie, is about vibranium coming out to the world, but also T'Challa's official rites and rituals becoming the king of Wakanda, and the strife and division among some of the clans that become of that because some want to stay isolated, stay how they have been, and some want the rest of the world to see their might and their power and their glory, as they're a hidden country in Africa that has all this wealth and technology through a rock of vibranium coming down to them that is still producing more vibranium to this day. And so there's this inner conflict. And so as Claw comes and he's stealing vibranium and all this and that, he's like a mercenary that's gone through Wakanda a few times. He has a apprentice, Killmonger, who's the secret cousin to T'Challa by T'Challa's father, T'Chaka's brother, who went to the U.S. In an attempt to expand, but he broke the rights and rituals and treaties and stuff of Wakanda, and so T'Chaka killed him, but he didn't know that his brother had a son, and so Killmonger is the cousin, and very close relative of T'Challa, and starts a miniature small civil war of we should start selling these weapons and start trying to basically take over this planet. And so Killmonger is a military vet and has all these like bullet like tattoos along him to recognize each individual kill. And he has the tattoo or symbol that every Wakandan has right here or whatever that shows a blue ink to show that he's Wakandan by nature. And he delivers Claw and he challenges T'Challa for the throne. We also have M'Baku towards the beginning of the film, as we have the King ritual. We have the mountain waterfall fight between M'Baku and T'Challa, where T'Challa wins and M'Baku yields. M'Baku plays a very big role in both of the Black Panther films, as he as in this one, he is one of the main reasons why Black Panther survives and is in this film for as long as he did. Because if it wasn't for M'Baku and his tribe, he T'Challa could have well died. But M'Baku knew that T'Challa was the right one for the throne. And so that is Black Panther in and of itself. And so this is a new king rising the ranks as his father is now dead and he's officially becoming king. Um, and this is also this is also the last official film of all the build up needed to finally build into Avengers Endgame. I mean, Avengers Infinity War, and that whole 5 movie span of everything encapsulating Infinity War and Endgame. All right, so that was part 1 of the MCU Phase 3 Infinity Saga. So now let's get on into part 2. Hope you enjoy. Grab some popcorn. We'll be here in a minute. Enjoy. Alrighty, so now we will begin with breaking down these films. As always, they have the typical breakdown of how big they are to the overall universe, the story of the saga, and also my opinions. I shortened that down to because there is already a 5+ minute long intro for this video. So we have Avengers Infinity War. We have all the different teams. We have the Guardians. We have the Avengers in their separate factions. We have Doctor Strange, Black Panther, the Wakandans, everyone all coming together in this one film. We have the Guardians and Avengers meeting together, thinking that they're enemies, because the Avengers of Earth have never, outside of Thor, met anyone from any other planet. We have, in the very beginning, Thanos, the big bad, appears. All of his underlings attack Earth. He attacks Asgard as they're flying in space. We have a lot happening in this film. It's a long one. Both of these are 2.5 or so hours or more. Both of these Avengers films are long and justifiably so. So, Infinity War, we have all these cast of characters coming together. We have Black Panther saying the line, "Get this man a shield," as the Thanos' minions and army is about to invade Wakanda and cracking open their Wakanda like guardian portal thing. So we have that happening. We have Iron Man, Spider Man, Doctor Strange, and some of the Guardians battling against Thanos on Titan. We have Spider Man and Iron Man going up into space, and Spider Man gets a new suit because Tony thought of it beforehand. Why wouldn't he? He wanted to protect Peter, so he protected him by giving him a spacesuit for free. So he could live in space because he knew he couldn't stop Peter at that point. So, and that is the Iron Spider suit, which I love. So we have all of that and much more. So this is the penultimate Avengers movie, where effectively you could skip the next 2 movies and go right into Endgame, and you wouldn't miss much. You would miss key things about how they do their hijinks in Endgame and stuff. But overall, Infinity War, you do not need up if you've watched most of the MCU movies up to this point, or at least watched Phase 3, you do not need anything else more to just jump right in to the best film of the MCU in their history. You can quote me on that. So, that is Avengers Infinity War. Alright, so now we have Ant Man and Wasp. This explains why Ant Man was not around at all during Infinity War. So this pretty much takes place concurrently with Avengers Infinity War, or and pretty much up to the blip happening at the end of Infinity War. Obviously, spoilers ahead, but these movies came out 8 years ago at the very minimum. So I am sorry, but it's been nearly a decade. So Ant-Man and Wasp, we have a villain from another past thing to do with like Hank Pym or something along the past, which I don't like because we already have something to do with Hank Pym. We needed something not to do with Hank Pym, but something to do with Scott, something to do with his past. We have his past heavily focused in Ant-Man, so it's not something I'm too fond of. And then the only other film that this villain appears in, which thankfully we have a villain appearing in another film. That's a first up to this point, pretty much. Pretty much. Thanos is also a first as well. So for that, she doesn't appear until very recently in the Thunderbolts, which came out last year. So, in case you forgot who this character is, don't worry. If you're rewatching all of the MCU, you'll forget and then go, "Oh, this is who this character is," because she came out next time 7 years later. That's the next point of relevance. That is Ghost, the main villain. Scott and Hope um, relationship has now developed even further. We have also Scott's daughter is a big portion of this. Scott is also on an on ankle monitor because of his actions through Civil War. But he has some hijinks to figure all that out because he is Ant Man. Um and all that stuff. I don't keenly like this film because it's a very like small little tidbit of like, oh, this is how I did it. I think it could have just been summed up in like 5 to 10 minutes of how and why he wasn't in Infinity War in Endgame because, well, the movie just didn't turn out as good. All right, so now we have the third film, the midway point of this, the film that came out as the final film before Endgame. You think it would have been great. You think the origin story of Captain Marvel. But they also went with, instead of doing Captain Marvel into Captain Marvel, which is the true origin story of the Marvel comics that I've later found out, they went with Captain Marvel and the Skrulls and the Supreme Intelligence and the Kree, which have a small little bit to do with Thanos, just a small bit to do with Thanos, not a lot. It does have stuff to do with Agents of Shield, mind you. By the way, which I always found as very weird or whatever, but it's a nice little nudge point to relate it to Agents of Shield. However, also this is basically an origin story set in the 90s with Nick Fury, Agent Coulson, a few other members of S.H.I.E.L.D., with them not having as much control with the US government. We have Captain Marvel, who doesn't have any memories of her Earth past, was a fighter pilot of a secret project, and she got her powers due to the Space Stone. And she's just over otherworldly powerful, but also very arrogant for no reason. Like she's powerful and arrogant, and that's about all she is. That's about the whole character arc of her. There's no full character arc. The whole character of her is just I get my memories back, and then I want to help out the scrolls at then. That's it. That's it. Again, just like Ant Man and Lost, I feel like this movie too could have also not been a movie because it wasn't as good, and it kind of ruins the hype of Phase 3 because most of Phase 3 up to this point was good film after good film after good film after good film, and them constantly stacking up good films constantly and leveling up how they did with Phase 1 with mostly good films and 1 to 2 bad ones every phase. We're nearing the end of this phase and we stick in the two worst ones. I don't like it. I don't like it. We could have done this earlier and it would have still made sense because we could explain it later. Alright, so now we have Avengers Endgame. This will be split into two clips for a very specific purpose in just a second. So, Avengers Endgame, my favorite film of all time. It brought in the entirety of the MCU together, and then Spider Man Far From Home is effectively the epilogue at the end of a great series. So, to provide you with how I still think Avengers Endgame is my favorite film and one of the best things that ever happened in Marvel in general, period. Here, watch this. Look at this photo that's about to come up. So, that photo right there is in my room right over there. It's been in my room every year of college, and I'm out of college now. I was in college for 5 years. It's been nearly a year since I've been out of college, and that's not moving anywhere. What I have in my room are the biggest inspirations in my life, the biggest things that inspire me, and that includes Marvel, Spider Man, Star Wars, football, Christian versus Stephen Curry, and Avatar The Last Airbender. Those are all my favorites, and that's my favorite movie of all time. So, Avengers Endgame. They use time travel for the first time, which also concurrently opens up the possibility for the multiverse. Did we know that the next saga would be the multiverse? No, but it is now. So, Avengers Endgame, we have the greatest film that I have ever watched. I'm not saying it's the greatest film of all time. It's one of the highest grossing films of all time. Very close. So, there is also that, by the way. So, in game, I cannot talk about this enough. I could make an hour long video about this. In the future, if we hit enough subscribers, I'll make an hour long video about this. You can bet your eyes on that. So, Avengers Endgame. After the events of Infinity War, we jump a little bit of time, and then they then find Thanos, and Thor goes, "I should have aimed for the head." Cuts Thanos off completely. He destroyed the stones, but Thor was so pissed off that he now lost his brother and a bunch of Asgardians, so he cut off the head of Thanos. Dark, huh? Well, Infinity War is dark enough. So, Endgame is darker, but it's still PG-13 because it's not a Deadpool movie or a vampire movie or anything to do with Marvel Netflix TV. You know what I'm talking about if you've seen my videos on that stuff. So, Endgame, they time travel. They manipulate the course of events into getting what they want. They bring everyone back. Tony Stark invents time travel because he wants Peter Parker back. No, there's no other reason. He decides to sacrifice himself for the greater good because he wants to defeat Thanos and bring an end to this threat. So he sacrifices his life to defeat Thanos. Hulk also has a task that takes a while to regenerate and a while to heal because of it. Also, Smart Hulk is here. I don't like the execution, but I love the character arc here. I love it. Love it. Thor's depression and all about his character is insanely great. We have also what happened to Hawkeye after since he wasn't really in Infinity War all that much. Or well, he kinda was, but he kinda wasn't really. His family's gone. He became Ronin. He dropped the bow. He got a sword, started mopping off gangs and cartels because of his depression. Thor got a gut, got video games, and got depressed. Hawkeye became a murderer killing machine because of his family dying. That's two sides of the same coin of depression and what it can do to a superhero. Then Hawkeye wants to sacrifice his life because he doesn't know his family is coming back. But Natasha goes, "No, I don't have a family. You do." But apparently Natasha does have a family. Spoilers alert, but it's been out for at least 5 years, or about to be out for almost 5 years. Black Widow movie. So in and of itself, Hawkeye has to deal with the fact that not only is his family gone, but at least now, both his family and Natasha are gone for a good 30 minutes of the film. Tony Stark meets his father. Captain America sees Peggy, which sparks the idea of him. After Tony said, he's like, I have no other reason to stay in this time anymore. He leaves. Sam Wilson is now the future Captain America. Bucky is old. Let's say it like this. Bucky is old. Also, Captain America gives Mjolnir Avengers Assemble. If you know comics, if you know Marvel, saying the words Avengers Assemble, which is a key catchphrase of Captain America or some of the leaders of the Avengers to say, is big. Also, Sam Wilson, after everyone is blipped back on your left, bringing back what happened from the Winter Soldier? A key thing? Yes! So many callbacks, so many cameos. Everyone from the MCU, pretty much up to this point, that was a hero, is in this film now. Loki isn't. He wasn't really brought. He's in this film. He's in this, but it's as a flashback from the past. Captain America versus Captain America for 3 minutes. I can go on for this for hours. But that's why Avengers Endgame is my favorite film of all time. Period. And it's the best culmination of all 19 films, 11 years of the MCU Infinity Saga. Now, we have the epilogue of Avengers Endgame. Peter Parker was blipped for 5 years, so now some kids who weren't in his class are now in his class, or some kids who were in his class are now graduate or in college, or are just working in full-blown adults. Imagine that as a shock, as like a 16, 17, or 18-year-old. You're going into your senior year of high school, blipped, you're gone. You come back 5 years later, some of your teachers are different, your class isn't all the same, and some of your classmates are now 5 years older than you. Imagine that as a shock. So that's one thing. His mentor, who he viewed as pretty much a father figure, is gone. He's dead. Imagine you got a father figure for about a 2-3 year span, and then you're blipped gone for 5 years. He does everything in his power to bring you back. You don't know that. And then he dies a few minutes later. What would you do? He's now lost his father, his Uncle Ben, and Tony Stark. He's not 18! He turns 18 at the end of his own trilogy. But this movie happens in the summer. We also get the iconic throw of Iron Man always had fun and the montage of building his suits. Now Peter Parker does it in his film. We have him going through depression and going through the after effects of Endgame. We see a bunch of after effects of Endgame in this film. It is a great film. We have the continuous introduction or teasing of the multiverse. I say teasing because of Mysterio and the take on Mysterio in this movie. I love the take on it. I would love to have another Mysterio in the MCU because I want an actual comic Mysterio. I love this take on it, and I love what it did at the end of this movie in every way, shape, and form. But I would still love a more comic accurate Mysterio in this movie. In another Spider-Man movie in a small role, I am fine with that. Perfectly fine with that, to be honest. The use of special effects and the use of elementals was top tier. The use of Nick Fury and Mariah Hill as Skrulls, greatness. Just greatness. Spider-Man going on a journey, on a field trip over the summer with his classmates, and also the fact that that he has to battle other threats along the way, and he talks back to Nick Fury. Yes, this is a great film. It does what the MCU Infinity Saga of this part of Phase 3 should have done with Ant-Man and Wasp and Captain Marvel. Built on greatness, building on greatness and stacking movies. Stacking them to do what's great. Alright, I'm done yapping. That is Spider-Man Far From Home. Alright, so that is the full Part 1 and Part 2 of the MCU Infinity Saga Phase 3. I hope you all enjoyed it, and a week from today when you see this video coming out, there'll be a much longer video, close to an hour and a half or even 2 hours long, of all 3 phases combined. This is just a compilation video thing that I wanted to get out. Whether you watch this or the other four individual phase 1, 2, 3, part 1 and part 2s is all up to you. I just hope you all enjoy it. Again, like the video to get it out there more. And if you enjoyed it, obviously like it. Subscribe to the channel. We upload about 3, 4. This week and next week will be 5 videos, but they're just combined or compilation type videos. That the 5th one is. I aim to do 3 to 4 videos every single week, 3 the minimum. 4 if I have an idea that's outside the spectrum of the 3 normal topics. Tomorrow, we will be discussing, as I film in just a minute, all 8 seasons of Arrow, ranked and explained. So, hope you all enjoy that tomorrow. That'll come out at 11 a.m. tomorrow. See you all then. Have a good one. Goodbye.